probably be short and sweet today, but I'm going to dump some information on you. And Yingping, please, when you have questions, stop me, because I tend to get talking too fast. So just say stop, what's going on here, and I'll try to explain it to you. I wanted to start with the fun stuff, which is this secret Jeff Gaffney home sale strategy. This is the secret formula. What I have done is, this is the basis of my listing presentation when I meet with somebody, but it's in here. I show up with this book that has taken me kind of 2 years to play with, and it's all summarized in here. What I have found is nobody wants me to go through page by page of this, but they feel comforted that I show up. Hey fellas, what's up? Come on in. Croc,
how's it going?
What's up?
Thanks, sir.
So the seller feels comforted that I show up with a book, but we don't go page by page through the book. Now there are others in our company, Tim Carson, who does go page by page through the book, and he scolds me for not going page by page through the book. Tim thinks I should show them every little thing I'm going to do. I focus on this slide, which is the meat of my presentation, which is in the book. I'll show you the book in a little bit, but it's in the book. So when I sit down, I pull out here and we start talking about, this is what I'm going to do to sell your home. And some of this is intended to be, this is what I do that XYZ doesn't do. And so I kind of focus on what differentiates me, because a lot of this, everybody does. But I go over it anyway, because Mr. and Mrs. Mansour don't really know exactly how the home is sold in today's market. So I wanted to go over this strategy first, then I'm going to dovetail into the pricing of the home and some other statistical stuff. And again, Yingping, I'm counting on you to stop me when I talk too fast or too much. All right, so I take this and I talk about local marketing, how I'm either going to market your home in the Real Estate Weekly or the Daily Progress or Find Properties. And in here, I usually have somewhere an example of that, if I can find it. I promise you it's in my book. Coming.
You still do the Daily Progress?
Not really, but I try to talk them out of it, because I think $75 if you do an agent's choice, it's kind of a waste of money compared to what you could do on social media. Mm-hmm. But I have a copy of one of my ads in the Daily Progress. I have a copy of some Find Properties in here, Real Estate Weekly. So I just kind of show them some of those things. But I don't really commit to that. I leave it kind of open-ended. But I say that I will be involved in local marketing. I'm going to skip over social media because I'm going to spend a lot of time there. Talk about marketing to neighbors. So in my market here in Glenmore, which is oftentimes different than other markets, but in this market of Glenmore, what you find is people in here are moving up and moving down all the time. Nobody in here is kind of, believe it or not, happy in their home. They're either looking to sell and get a bigger home, or they're looking to sell the big home and move down to a smaller home, or ultimately where I'm convinced that half of Glenmore is going to end up at Westminster Canterbury. Like the trail's already started. If you go over to Westminster Canterbury, and I know that because my mom lives there, you go over there and everybody that's in the cafeteria there used to live at Glenmore. And so, but the reason I bring that up is I market to the neighbors because about 25% of my sales activities in Glenmore are people who already live here. So if I'm going to list Austin's house on Graham Court, is that where he used to live?
That is where he's
Yeah,
yes.
on Graham Court, the first thing I'm going to tell him is that I'm going to market to the neighbors for a couple different reasons. Number one is that the buyer may exist in Glenmore who's already sold on the lifestyle, already settled in here, and they made your house may be just exactly what they're looking for. And then number two is, if I have found that if you engage the neighbors and ask for their help in selling a home, that they will spread the word. So in other words, when I do a public open house, I'm always thrilled when a neighbor comes. And I always ask for their help. Spread the word if you know of anybody who might be interested in moving into your
People
neighborhood.
wait for their friends to move in next to them.
Yes, exactly. But some people, the thing Josh said, some agents, when they do open houses, they come back frustrated because they'll say, well, nobody came other than neighbors. And I'm always like, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can be a good thing if you. So I market to neighbors. Database marketing. So you guys are newer to the business and you're just getting your database kind of up and going. I've been doing this for a while, so I have a pretty thick database, and so and then there are ways of, you can buy lists and things like that, but I will just tell you what the database comes in is important for me when I'm trying to list Austin's house, because I do have a lot of Martha Jefferson connections at Martha Jefferson Hospital. Martha Jefferson Hospital is just right over here, and so people, if I'm sitting down with Austin to sell his house, he wants to know that I have connections with Martha Jefferson Hospital, and I have a way to sort of back into the marketing to sell your Graham Courthouse through some of the doctors at Martha Jefferson. So I'm not afraid to name drop, and that's part of my database. And then the second place that I play that is that I have a pretty good connection through the UVA athletic department, and also have a connection through a number of UVA doctors, and so people want to hear under this, at least for me, and so I'm sharing you what I do, and you have to tailor it to what you do, but for me, I name drop in this database. I never show anybody my database. I never give any details about my database, other than I give around the edges. I definitely go into Martha Jefferson, UVA athletics, and then UVA doctor connections that I have. So that's about all I do with that. Then I come over to realtor marketing. Everybody kind of does it, but if I list your home on Graham Court, probably going to pop out an email to Olive Carr, and then I have my secret list of the top 200 realtors, and then I have my experience list of who typically sells Glenmore, and so I'm explaining to them that I have the bulk list, and then I have kind of the custom list. I'm gonna hit them with the bulk email, and then the people that traditionally sell Glenmore, they're going to get a little special attention and maybe even a phone call. And when I do a realtor open house, I'm probably going to call Charlotte Damon and Steve McLean and people like that sell a lot of Glenmore and ask them to come preview. Let me jump over targeted national and international marketing. You could use a lot of what, have y'all seen what is in Tim Carson's bag of tricks with that?
a little bit of.
Have you used it, Mansoor? Have you used that at all? Yingping? Anybody? Have you all used any of Tim's? He's got the Griff. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, which one? You're not talking about.
Yeah.
It's posted like in 80 countries or 60.
Yeah.
You have to be in the top 50 though. You've got to be the top 50 tier.
To get into the international.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So assuming that that Austin's house is 850,000, it's probably gonna be in the top 50.
Yeah.
So do you
Cutoff's about 500.
do you know where it goes for that?
Yeah, it goes to China. It
Yeah.
goes to.
A bunch of different websites.
Uh-huh.
I've got
Is it listed?
list of.
Yeah, it's list of-
goes.
That's all listings.
Those are gonna be.
No, but this is
not all
the
listed.
this is the list of
It translates.
international-
Yeah, this is like the
20 countries.
global. Yeah, I forget what it is.
I saw
Tim
Let's talk
that.
global.
showed it to me.
I saw that in a Chinese, a very big, like real estate website, but the interpretation is really bad.
The what is?
Interpretation from
Impression
interpretation.
is not good.
Translation.
Interpretation, like the language translated,
Translation. I gotcha.
Translation. Yeah, it's really bad.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it doesn't get all the beauty that described in English at all. Yeah.
I have one, I'll show you this one another time, but I have a program that I subscribe to that when you get into $1 million listings, you want to touch down on the international advertising, and this particular program that costs money has, so I touch down on this. I have a slide that talks about, this is not Carson's,
Yeah.
this is a separate thing, but, well, anyway,
Can I ask you a question?
yes,
The marketing to neighborhood, how do you do that? Flyers, just listing?
there's a lot of different ways to do it. I like to do postcard.
Just listing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I also tend to think that I cover that through my social media also, because I'll boost it on social media. I'll come to that in just a second.
What do you do a zip code demographic?
For
For a neighborhood.
boost,
For a neighborhood on Facebook.
yeah. If you boost, the way I boost, which you guys are probably even more advanced than I am, but if you boost, it'll show you the radius of what you're boosting it to.
Yeah, you can do it that way, yeah.
And so that's the way I do it. And so I pound usually from Troy, Virginia to Crozet, and I hit that pretty hard. And so out of that, I end up, I spend $10 on the boost and I get 1,500 views or something like that. But what do you boost with? The thing that costs money, now this is, again, this is the market that I'm dealing with. Where I've been able to differentiate is with David and his group. I'll do the drone video. I'll get the drone video done. And we've perfected that we can get the video on Facebook is 2 minutes.
Unlimited for Facebook. Twitter is 220.
Yeah, but Facebook still doesn't. The viewers of Facebook don't like it much more than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're doing about 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
2 minutes on Facebook, a minute on Instagram,
Yes.
and then 2 minutes on Twitter, 220.
Yeah.
Those are the three places that I will really. And when I get into the social media marketing, I try to kind of fly through the others because I try to get to the social media marketing because none of my competitors really do social media marketing. So when I can show them a page in here, what I'll do is I'll say, I can't really read that. How many views does that say?
It's 1,600.
1,600 views.
Yeah.
So this was a listing that's
1,600.
1,600.
Yes, 1,600.
That was Devin Pine's listing, 1,600 views. So that was
It's Gardner.
the Gardeners. Yeah. So I mean that is just I've had some that I've boosted a little more, and we've had 2,500 views. So that's kind of an average. And then usually what I do is, depending on the demographic that I'm meeting with, but half of my sellers aren't even on Facebook. And so I will break out my phone or an iPad and say, have y'all ever seen a drone video? Half of them haven't even seen it. But when I show it to them on the phone or the iPad, that's usually what gets them excited. And I talk about how the way I market is different than most other realtors because I'm going into the social media, and then I'll kind of explain all that part. You guys have heard most of that before, but I wanted to kind of cover this. I wanted to see if there was anything on this thing. But you can take this yourself and create your own. Each bubble here is a slide in my book. So this is the talking page, and then for social media marketing, I have a Facebook slide, and then there's also, I think, you guys can do this. Questions on that? I'm gonna keep rolling. So, they like me. Mr. and Mrs. Mansour like me. I'm in here, but I'm competing for the listing, and now we're going to talk about price. I'm going to tell you, let me get to something first. I don't know if you guys pay attention to Melinda's statistics. You guys get this? You guys print this out?
Yes.
So this is very helpful information, but the one thing that is supersonic helpful is this sales versus listing page. Bottom right corner gives the ratio of list to sold, and so that's saying that's 4 months inventory, which a balanced market is 6 months of inventory. You guys have read this. It's all over the press that there's not enough homes for sale. So when I'm sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Mansour, I can tell you I pretty much want your listing. I've been in markets where there's been too much for sale, and I've kind of come in like, I'm not sure I want this listing. Every home I sit down with today, I know I want that listing. It's just a matter of what price are we going to end up at. And at some price, it doesn't make sense for me. Some price is overpriced, and I'm not really interested in a super overpriced listing, although Christopher can point out where I've taken overpriced listings. And sometimes you just don't know until you, but the key index down here is the 1 to 4, so that's 4 months inventory. And then on the right hand side, that gives you for each price range kind of what the inventory situation is. The ones that start to not look as good is unfortunately a lot of my market, $1 million, $1.5 million. You got a year's worth of inventory. So the reason that this sheet is helpful is that if I'm sitting down with Mr. and Mrs. Mansour and they're in that $1 million to $1.5 million price range, I've got to let you know that there's a lot of inventory in your price range relative to this market. I've got to do some educating. So let's talk to. Let me just tell you this part, which is I'm gonna get to really one of the biggest punchlines of the morning's training session. If you can get their number before you play your number, your life, I have found that my life is much easier. Let me give you an example of that. I have gone into listings, and I did one 4th of July weekend, a listing. In fact, it's the example of our pricing matrix here that I'm going to get to. I went in, didn't know her number, And I came in very, very, very realistic. And I was way off from her number. Now, if I had to do it again, at the very beginning of the conversation, I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Crocker, what are you guys thinking price-wise? Now, let me just tell you, half the time, they'll just tell you what their number is. And you're in a much better position knowing where they're coming from. So the other half of the time, Mr. and Mrs. Crocker will say, well, gee, Jeff, that's why we brought you here. To educate me. What do you think it's worth? And that's a much harder presentation when you don't know what they're thinking. But if you can get them to spit that number out, you are a million miles away, a million miles ahead. And so, literally, you have to practice. Mr. and Miss Eagle, do you guys have an idea of what price range you're considering? Just ask and be quiet. And literally, it's probably more like 60 or 70% of the time they'll say, well, yeah, we were thinking this house. We were thinking $650. Okay. Then you can kind of work at it from there. If we're in this house and they say, oh, the kiss of death is when they say we need $850. Well, we're not moving. Well, in this house, $850 is ridiculous. And then what you have to do at that point is start probing, well, what are you basing that number off of? And unfortunately, what you end up getting is, well, our mortgage is $775. We've refinanced it, and so that's what we need to get out of it. Well, what you need to get out of it and what it's worth are not necessarily related. And so, but if you can get that number, you can kind of close quickly. If they were to say, on this home, $650, I'd say we're probably in the ballpark. You know, we might have some trouble because you've got a main road out here, but you've got a golf course out there, and then I'd say, well, look down at the floors. We're going to have to kind of get this house ready. You know, there's work to be done, but, you know, we're probably in the ballpark. Now, I'm going to jump right to the numbers that I will, last page is pricing matrix, and Sarah and Christopher have seen this, so this is a total repeat. But before I step in to any listing, I'm going to know these numbers for sure, just so I'm in the ballpark. The first thing I want to know is, what does the county say? I want to know what the county assessment is. It's easy to get. You guys know how to get that. Almar.org. Look it up. You got to make sure it's a recent assessment this year. Then I want to know what Zillow has to say about it. The one that I have found, where'd it go? Where's RPR? Is that not on here?
It's not.
You don't have it on there.
Okay, well, I would add one. I'm not sure what happened with RPR. You guys using RPR? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So RPR, very helpful. And so I will take Zillow, County. I'll look at what they purchased it for. I like this program, HomeSnap. David Griffin got me this program called TotalViews.
TotalView.com.
TotalView.com. And these are all kind of pricing algorithms that will at least get me in the ballpark. And then depending on the neighborhood, I'm just kind of telling you the neighborhood that I work. This price per square foot, let me drill down on that for a second. So the guy next door, the Stanley Martins of the world, they try to sell for $175 a square foot. And they're one of the cheaper builders in terms of what that number is. Stanley, but they're all pretty similar. Stanley, Ryan, Craig, Southern, $175 a square foot. And so this price per square foot, I usually take whatever their square footage is and multiply it times 175 and see what that number kicks into. Where it gets skewed is when they have a finished basement. That's always the discussion. Do you get full value for that? What happens if you don't have a basement? What happens if the basement's unfinished? That's usually the part where these numbers start to blur a little bit. But I will always look at price per square foot, and I want to know how am I competing against new. Go Yingping.
Could you please talk more about a house with basement, finished basement, square footage, and the regular living? How can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard for me, even with the buyer.
Good job.
There was that company meeting maybe, where the appraiser came in to talk about that, and it basically just kind of sounded like dark art.
Yeah.
Here's
the truth of it. And Sarah's husband's a builder, and so she can verify this. $175 a square foot is usually going to include an unfinished basement. The cost to finish the unfinished basement is about $50 a square foot. Is that a ballpark number? And so you can get another way to do it, Yingping, is to say if it's 2,100 square feet townhome, and it's you get full value for that above grade square footage. So if it's 2,100 square feet above grade, you get $175 a square foot for that. Now, let's go into the basement. You have another 1,000 square feet there. Well, I'm not going to give you $175 a square foot for that necessarily. I might just, this is where you have to kind of play with it a little bit. This is the, what'd you call it?
Dark arts. Dark arts and basement appraisals.
This is where you might just get 1,000 times 50, or what is that, 50,000? You might just get 50,000 worth of value to finish that basement. So
you mean use $50 per square feet for the finished basement?
And that's a nice finished basement, I think. Or you think that's cheap?
Depends on the kitchen. The kitchen blows it out a little bit, and people are doing like these crazy kitchens. But yeah, I mean, I think in general that's a.
But my experience in this example is like for the living place, it's like a first floor. It's just to the end. This is slope the house.
Like a walkout.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
It's got windows on the front and the walkout.
Yeah, it's completely look like normal. If you walk in, it's just to the end of the room. There, wall over there. Really nice.
Well, for me, also, I want to say a couple other things about that price per square foot. Is a lot of the homes that, like Piper, let's take that, it's coming back on the market. Piper is a nicer built home than $175 a square foot. So I wouldn't really be shooting for $175. I think Piper could probably be $200 a square foot because it's all brick. It's got the first floor master. The $175 a square foot tends to be just this box, floor over floor. As soon as you start to add a first floor master bedroom, now you've got more roof and more foundation, and so that building cost per square foot is going to go up. And the most expensive one is?
Brick.
Rancher. The one level design is the most expensive price per square foot for the main floor. But the nice thing about the Rancher is if you finish that basement, if it's a 2,300 square foot Rancher and you finish that basement, you just double that up.
Yeah.
4,600, it becomes a great value. So you have to kind of, for me, when I go in to price something, I want to know what the county has to say about it. I want to know what they paid for it. That's all public information. RPR has it, and then you guys that are using RPR will know that RPR sometimes will even spit out what their loan is. So I love to know ahead of time what their loan is. RPR, I have found for me, only about 25% of the time doesn't tell me what their loan is. But it's very helpful if you can find that out. If I can get the Crocker's number before I go into my number, sometimes if I know his number is 650, sometimes my numbers are just supporting his, and if literally it's kind of a, do I have the math to support it, and then do I have the gut feel that that's the right fit? That, I mean, that's my pricing 101. That's how, I mean, a lot of it is literally, would you take this listing at 650? You think, and a lot of times you just don't know. You just don't know until you put it out there. But you got to have some math to back it up.
Are these your recommended list price or selling price?
That,
If you
which
do
I
it-
failed on that one because she wanted 1.1, and I did not know her.
She wanted that as a sales price?
Did
or
you
a
take
list
this?
price?
As a list
You
price.
took this to your
I
presentation.
took it too. I took it too, and I went through all this, and I got to the end, and I failed to find out what the number was ahead of time, and so I could sense that as I was presenting this, can I leave now? And it's needless to say, I mean, they didn't list it. You're gonna wait. But they bought it for $868, and this is just like 3 or 4 years later. And I thought I was, you know, I mean, really, if they asked me, if they said, we'll list it at any price, it's up to you, Dr. Gaffney, the doctor of real estate, I'd have been $899. And then I would have said, you know, it's going to take some work at that. But I looked around, I thought the house showed well, I wanted the listing, and I was willing to take it up, but I wasn't going to go a penny over $1 million. And then they started saying 1.1, and I said, no. So we ended up in this staring contest for about 10 minutes. And then she asked me to leave, so the time was up.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Do you find that people ask, okay, so if you're going to list it at $995, what do you think we'll sell it for? And do you just kind of look at the market for that?
I rarely get asked that question, but I could see why you'd be asking that. I mean, I would be ready that, you know, probably 95% is what.
If you list it at the right number, not the 1.1 that you want, because you're not going to get 95% of that price because you're listing it way too high then.
95% of my number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some agents use that as the big selling point for themselves. Like, we'll get you 98% of this price. So,
I haven't really gone.
They have to, you know, that's sort of like a selling point also, but that really is contingent upon your sellers agreeing to your number.
Yeah, I haven't really gone. I haven't really gone to that. But I will find, Sarah, that most of my seller clients out here are friends of mine, and so they are looking for me to kind of educate me on the market, tell me what I can get. I still like to get their number, but in this case it was a colossal fail because I didn't get their number, and their number was way high from mine. What else was I going to say about that? So I'll cover it on here. I think I went to questions.
What's the MLS comments? Proud?
Yeah. In this price range, you know, based off of these statistics, it was the MLS comments. Thank you. Per the Glenmore neighborhood in MLS, in that price range, I just wanted to make sure that I covered, you know, because if we were talking, Sarah and I have another potential seller client that's under $300,000 in Albemarle County, my MLS comment would be great price range to be in right now. Still have to be careful, but I mean, based on these statistics, what does this say? Under 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's basically just your positioning in the market. Like, I guess Tim's slides have two sections. One where it's gone back to everything that's sold,
Mm-hmm.
and what price you're going to get, and then another slide for here's what's on the market now.
Yeah.
This is your competition, and this is where we're going to position ourselves within the other things that are out there.
And I like that. I like
So
that.
that's kind of getting it. That's what Dave Malott's comments is.
That's really what's the competition for sale market now.
Okay.
But geez, Sarah, did you see that one?
I did.
Yeah, not much for sale. Under 300. 250 to 300. Whereas, that where I was battling this lady, 900 to $1 million or $1 million to $1.5 million. I mean, those are crowded price ranges, and so they just need to know that. And then the other thing that I'm changing to, in the $1 million price range, I'm going for a year listing agreement. I'll back off of that pretty quickly, but that helps set the expectation. We're going to do this. I'm going to spend this money. It's going to be a year. If it's under 500, I'll do a 6-month listing agreement. Have I taken shorter than that? Yeah. Just depends. Price range, neighborhood. I prefer not to. Other questions? Ying Peng.
I didn't know the home snap give a value of the house.
It gives a value.
Um,
Yeah, it's
I-
just a program on my phone.
Yeah, I have.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I have that. I didn't find out. I just what is under contract and
Let's see what Home Snap says about this home. I would say this home is worth $550. Let's see what Home Snap says. 1318.
Oh, I got one question. When you got a listing or you present to the seller, you wanted their listing, and are you going to say, what if, like within 1 month, still no offer, nothing, you got a strategy to, to like price reduce and stuff like that? What kind of strategy
Yeah.
could you use?
I think that's a great question. You were going to say
I heard
something?
one agent say during some classes, like during my listing agreement, it has a clause saying if you don't drop your price after 30 days, I will fire you.
Wow.
She's been doing it for 11 years or whatever, so I guess she can get away with that. But
Who was that?
Rachel Reynolds. She's, I think she works for Remax. She teaches some transaction-based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So let's talk about that Ying Peng. I have a couple listings that have been kind of just lingering there, and when what you don't want to do is fall into that mistake of listing and disappearing, listing the house and not communicating with the seller. And so if you can set up a weekly phone call with your sellers just to say, even if nothing has happened, haven't had any showings all month, even if you can figure out something to tell them, some little data point on the market, and if not, ask them how their summer's going. But at least they've heard your voice. The worst thing that can happen is that they go 60 days without ever hearing from Ying Peng, and then they're going to say, then when it's time to reduce, then you call for the price reduction. It's like all these little calls set up usually if you are a really good agent and you're staying in touch every week, some of our agents are calling in twice a week. Hey, I'm sorry we haven't had any showings. 900 to $1 million is a tough price range. There's not a lot of activity right now. How's your summer? Setting that up, setting that up, setting that up, setting that up. And then about the fourth time they'll say, well, gee, we haven't had much activity. Do you think we should reduce the price? oftentimes the really good agent, it'll come from the seller if you're really being like almost like a housing counselor or almost like a housing therapist to them, which is a lot of it. To hold on to a listing, that's what a lot of it you have to do, is you have to just stay in touch, give them the information, and then if you've gone a certain amount of time and your gut tells you it's time to go for a price reduction, you might even want to, instead of, this is more my personality, I would say, well, you know, let's finish up the summer, and as we get past Labor Day, if we don't have much activity, we probably ought to sit down that first week in September and just look at our pricing and our strategy again. I'm just going to kind of set up that meeting. Instead of the call out of the blue, they haven't heard from me in 60 days, and now I say, got to reduce the price. I just don't think that works. At least that doesn't work for my personality. I think if you set it up and set it up and set it up, and stay in touch. And then if you have time with your sellers, one thing I found in a neighborhood like Glenmore that's very helpful is if you can drive them around and show them some of the competition. And then if you do that, sometimes they'll come back and say, my goodness, we need to reduce the price. We're not as good as that house. And so a lot of it, Yingpeng, is just investing time in that relationship. It's a big part of it. How we doing time-wise, Griff? Oh gosh. Getting out early today. Now, Mansour, I believe one of the best services you can provide to your database, your sphere of influence, the 20 people that you're buddies with, 50 people, is to just let them know that you're happy to provide for them a home evaluation. Happy to provide that for them. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and provide it for you. And just, you know, I would step through this formula and say, you know, based on my information, just thought you'd want to know what your home is worth. Or at least tee it up by asking them if they're interested in a free home evaluation. Anybody that takes you up on that is probably thinking about moving.
Or at least you're interested.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other questions on anything else in the business?
Can you do a buyer presentation class?
A buyer presentation in what capacity?
And the price negotiation.
Oh,
How we
yes.
read the other agent when they send back counter offer.
Yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
about that.
Negotiations, yeah.
That's the funnest.
Yeah, especially for me, I feel like, you know, culture difference. Am I reading
Yes.
the other agent right, or should I? So I'm nervous about every counter offer.
Okay, so Sarah, you're pretty good at that. Why don't you lead us off?
I was actually going to say no. I want to hear this because the buyers that I've been working with are convinced that the market for the $800 to $1 million is awful, and that nobody's getting what they're asking.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already ready to like lowball anything they make an offer on,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case. They've already lost one because they didn't make an offer. It went under contract, and now
Has that closed yet, by the way?
no, it's supposed to close on the 30th.
Okay.
And they could possibly lose the next one that they've been looking at because they're just not ready to make an offer. When they make the offer, I know it's going to be low. So, yeah, how do I convince them that the market's not terrible and that they don't need to make a low ball offer because it's not going to get accepted? And yeah, how do you negotiate that out?
Well, I think data helps if you can provide, 2 years worth of, for if it's the Glenmore, you can easily pull up 2 years worth of close sales in their price range and show them what's happened. Show them, you know, kind of what the numbers say. And then at the end of the day, though, if I was working with those folks, I'd be doing exactly what you're doing. Is I'd be probably a little bit frustrated, but I would be willing to hang in there with them and present whatever offer. But yeah, and then once you get the offer for $850 on the $1 million home, communicating that to the listing agent, you know, you have to be a little bit delicate there. But at the same time, you represent the buyer,
Right.
so you have to. Your fiduciary responsibility is there. Give us. Can you give me a more specific question, Yingpeng? Like, give me something really. Even if it's, we'll keep it. We'll turn him off.
Yeah.
This question for Yingpeng, because I do a lot of this, and I sort of take it for granted. I do a lot of. Once I've submitted the offer, you're at 265. Where'd you say you are? 260. Where are you?
260, yeah, I was.
Where are you? Where's the buyer?
265.
You mean the first?
Can you help?
Yeah, they're at 265.
The buyer's at
The buyer's
265. The seller's at
268.
278.
Yeah, they're not
So the ball's back in your court, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times what I'll do, instead of resubmitting the paperwork, I'll call my buyer and say, okay, they're at 278, we're at 265. What do you want to do? They say, what do you think we should do? How about 272? And they say, okay. And then I'll say, well, let me submit that verbally and see if we can at least expedite the process instead of having to get the initial, chase it down.
Nobody wants to do that.
I'll do it verbally
Yeah.
until we get to an agreement.
Yeah.
You guys do that also?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm
it's
going to
important.
tell her, tell the listing agent to do that because it takes like tons of trouble to get the
Yes.
to get
Oh, that's-
everybody.
But the ball is still in your court, and you're trying to figure out how best serve your client.
Yeah, and also get the deal done.
Yes, I would say, gosh, I mean, if you could get the seller to split and meet you in the middle, you'd be doing great.
Yeah,
You would have been great.
I think that way make me more comfortable.
Mhm.
I feel like I serve my client right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if it was me, if I was Yingpeng, I'd be calling my client, hello, Austin. They're at 278, we're at 265. How about we split it at the middle, which is what is that, 275?
278. 278 is there.
13,
278 is
6.5,
there.
275,
65 hours. The middle is 271, 500,
Yeah.
something like that.
And how about we round that up to 272?
Right.
Are you good with
I like
272?
I don't like 500.
You good with 272? Why don't I offer that in at 2? You good at 272? Hey Pat, we're at 272. You guys, and that's kind of how that.
I would also prep your buyer, especially if you think that the other side isn't going to accept 272. Say, hey, like, you might need to go a little bit higher than this. I'll let you know. You know, just to kind of set that expectation beforehand, so they're not like really disappointed if they don't get it and think it's going to be like a one counter situation.
But once you get them to 272,
You're not right there.
You're there.
Right
You're there.
At the
Yeah.
first, because they thought they are going to beyond the 280,000, and I said, wait, let me do some research and back up, and then we are already, so, I just want to be, I can do better job.
No, I know. I think you're doing a really good job for your buyers. Really good job. If you can get that for 275,
Yeah, you do great. You knocked 12,500
gosh,
up there.
yeah.
That's great.
And you got the 2-car garage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions as we end up here? Questions? Mansoor?
Is there a way to get a copy?
Yes? No. You can flip through it.
I have a house or so. Maybe you should have visited.
Okay.
But that's like, that has
Do we want to do that afterwards?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with class. you just made me think of this. If does real estate 3 do anything? If you're selling your own property, is there a lesser commission,
Yeah.
something or other?
Read the policy
Okay,
manual.
I think you were gonna say that.
And you were supposed to ask me. I don't know what the policy is. Now, I think there is a differentiation if it's your own home that you're living in, as opposed to
Like an
all
investment
your
property.
25 investment properties. But at the end of the day, you'll find that we're very friendly.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks.
As
Thank
best
you guys
as we
for-
should.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah,
You
good
can
luck.
let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know how it goes, and I'll let your colleagues know that you're another